We are without Jeslyn Moya today,
we
right?
miss you. We are sending so much love to Jeslyn. She had her dog transitioned, and it's a big thing for her family.
It's so true. We miss you so much, Jez.
We
Hope
do.
to see you soon. Absolutely.
Oh. Yep. So we come together every morning to know the truth, live on principle, and today is Motivation Monday. We're going to talk about how having a daily spiritual practice can have a positive impact on your personal and professional life. And we have some extraordinary guests in the house this morning. How are you guys back there?
We're good.
Hi, good morning. Okay, so we're going to start with Sloan. How are you?
I'm great. How about you?
White and shining armor. You're looking kind of vetty back there, by the way.
Thank you. Sorry?
So we want to know how you start your morning.
How I start my morning. I wake up, I make my bed, I put on some great tunes in the morning, I make breakfast for my family, and then I start the day.
Amazing. We love that. Mandy, how are you? We've got an author.
Thank you.
How are you doing? You look gorgeous.
Thank you.
Tell us, how do you start your morning? We at Good Morning LaLaLand talk a lot about, we find the commonality with people. A lot of people meditate, a lot of people do their affirmations, whatever's there. How do you start your day?
I think the biggest thing is no technology, which is a hard one for us. So I keep my phone outside of the room. If I need an alarm, I put it, in the closet or something. And I keep at least like 2 hours before I get on my computer or my phone, and I'm journaling. If it feels right to meditate, I make sure that I'm drinking water, taking my supplements, and I'm just kind of centering. I'm basically deciding, how is my day going to look, what is consisting of my day, and who am I going to show up as in those moments.
Smart girl.
I love it. Yeah, so much better than hitting the snooze button.
I do that
Most of us do. Yeah.
I set 2 alarms.
Do you?
So like, just in case.
You see mine, I've got 10 there.
So Don Brown, he's an author, working with veterans, really being the voice for that. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great, Doctor. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you as well.
Yeah.
So we want to know, how do you start your morning?
Lots of coffee, lots of caffeine, and as of recent, soda water and a little bit of apple cider vinegar and a little baking soda. That really helps a lot. That's my most recent kick, and it's working pretty well.
Got to get that acid down, right? It's good acid to get the bad acid down. It's kind of a weird, counterintuitive thing. Well, we're so excited to learn more about you guys, hear about your personal stories, and we're looking forward to it.
Awesome. So excited about the guest.
I know. So what's up? So it's a weekend. Okay, let me just say, I felt like I was going to a funeral today. I was like, I'm like in black. I've got my black umbrella. It's raining. I'm like,
isn't it interesting how the weather affects like what clothes you choose?
Look.
I know. I did the same thing. I was like,
we didn't coordinate
blue.
this.
No. I was like, there's blue and there's lavender and there's reds, and I'm like, no, I just go for the black because it feels
it's always
rainy.
good, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So the weekend, what'd you do?
I know. A lot of self-care. I was supposed to hit a Golden Globes gifting suite event, but I didn't make that. I kind of regret not making that. It was amazing.
There was like traffic. I had gone to the west side a couple times, and it was like I had to go like on detour. I was like,
Did you?
Yeah. Waze, where are you?
Yeah, I know. How was your weekend?
I had a great weekend. I had a lot of social things. So I was up at Bel Air Hotel for an event. I was over in Brentwood for something. I went over to the farmer's market over there. I was all over the place. So I worked a little bit, but I had a little playtime this weekend.
All my single friends have been trying to get me to go to the Brentwood farmer's market.
Oh yeah.
They're like, it's amazing.
Is it true? Is it a big pickup?
I don't know.
place?
I guess it's like a great place to meet people. Is it?
I mean, it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it probably in the summer it's a little bit more like, but it was still,
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice weekend. I'm glad that it waited to rain until today, Monday, so we can enjoy the weekend for the most part.
I know. Well, we're so excited because we sold out. So I have this event, Society. Tomorrow night we have one of our premieres. It's up on there. Is that my phone? What's going on? There's like dinging somewhere. But anyway, so I think someone's calling my.
You get a phone call.
Someone's calling my computer. Hello, universe. What do you need? So we have our first event at Lapeer Hotel, Love Roxy with ceremony meditation. We sold out.
What?
We're so excited, right?
That is
I know.
Awesome. Congrats.
So the event is all about heart-centered space transformation. My intention is, I just desired community. We go to yoga things or we do our meditation at home or whatever, but I wanted to have a place where we can all really come together, online, offline, and walk away from a beautiful evening where you feel like your soul's fed.
Yeah.
So
I love that this event is coming to fruition. Erin, you and I have been talking about the importance of giving people like experiences for years, right? And it's true, like people are lonelier now than ever, despite being more connected now than ever, at least technologically. So, you know, an opportunity to connect with like-minded people and to also be inspired, uplifted, enlightened.
Right.
It's just,
they're just coming for you. Actually, it's so funny. It's so funny because it's going to be like 60 women and Shaman Durek and you.
Oh wow! It's
hopefully we can
so
get Andy to come too. But but no, we never want to exclude anyone. But there is this whole like women's movement that we just can't help deny, you know. But we're going to also open up the evening to 4 panelists at the end: Nick Pidgeon and Amber Valdez and Sarah Delane and Shaman Durek, talking about how can we create community, because they all have great communities, and so we're bringing all these influencers together. There's going to be tons of influencers there, everyone, and I believe the Princess of Norway is going to be there as well.
Really?
Yeah, we're doing a little branding around here, you know.
I love that.
But speaking of the loneliness, so I saw a tweet from LA Times this morning about co-living spaces.
Co-living
right?
spaces.
What do you think about that?
I don't really even know what that is. Isn't that what everybody in LA is already doing?
Well,
Who doesn't have a roommate in LA?
I don't know. I think they're creating like these apartments that you actually like. They decide. They get to say like the type of like a genre of people that are living together, and it's kind of like the new commune type of a thing.
Really?
So I think we should.
I'm not opposed to that.
I think we should do that.
Yeah, I love this idea. You know, I mean, it's interesting because I remember years ago when I moved from Philadelphia to Miami. You know, and I didn't have a whole lot of money. I remember, you know, discovering how important it was to have access to things, but not necessarily own things. And the world, I think, is coming more and more to understand that with the car sharing, you know, with co-living spaces, co-working spaces. It's fantastic. I love it. You know, it gives people an opportunity to connect in a deeper way.
You're like, as long as I can close the door.
Yeah, I'm a bit of an introvert, really, by nature.
I know. I don't want anyone in my space when I'm.
Yeah, I kind of worked hard just so I can have my own space. Right. I get it. I love it.
I get it.
Yeah.
I think it's cool.
Sure. Yeah.
But so speaking of, Monday motivation, I want to talk about, you know, because I was thinking about the loneliness in everyone, and I'm thinking about how we really have to find that motivation within to serve. And I wanted to ask you a question. So I know obviously you work with tons of clients, CEOs, corporations, So obviously you may put it in a different language than your daily spiritual practice. But what do you think, what does that do for people in their personal professional life when they actually have a practice and get to their core principles and their core values?
Oh, Erin, I think it's such a great topic and a great question. It's literally everything, right? I mean, to not have it, and you can, you're right, whether you call it a spiritual practice or just a personal and professional practice or exercise that you apply on a daily and consistent basis is everything. I don't know how you can live this life without, you know, having some kind of intentional approach.
I'm a hot mess, but I have some principles to live by. I'm not gonna lie, right?
Yeah, I mean, what do you think? I know that you work with.
I mean, I was thinking about it. It's like definitely helps you stay grounded for sure. Because I think it's really I mean, for me, like all the technology coming in, the emails coming in, just I'm so overwhelmed. If I don't have that moment to just take a breath and get grounded and like choose what I'm going to do instead of everything in life choosing what I'm going to do that day, and then obviously staying focused. I think that it's one of our biggest challenges. The phone, literally, I think that says something like 160 times people pick up their phone and look at their phone in the day.
160 times.
160 times.
That's picking up and putting down, so who knows, and then...
Right?
Yeah, that's incredible.
It's amazing, yeah. And then actually, I watched a talk this weekend by one of the co-founders of WeWork, because speaking of co-living, co-working, all this stuff, and he was talking about his family. Adam Newman was talking about his family and how, I mean, he's Jewish, and how he got back to his principles, and because living on principle, how much it helped his business. And I think it's so important to know that these things actually matter. Like it matters if you're living in your own ethics and your own morals and what works for you.
100%, because at the end of the day, really, isn't it all about peace, happiness, love, and abundance? I mean,
no, it's all about
hate and frustration and conflict and scarcity. I love it. Exactly. That's what I'm after anyway.
You know?
Yeah, but it's true. It's like, and so whether you call them spiritual practice or whether you call them something else, at the end of the day, we're all after all these things. And I think spiritual practice at the end of the day is simply the recognition and realization that these things exist within you. And I think when you have that realization, all of a sudden the cognitive agility that you need, the emotional regulation that you need as a professional or as a personal, as an individual, just start to click into place.
And don't you think that, like, I remember being in meditation in the morning, and I'd have this huge to-do list, but I'd go into meditation, and then it was like the to-do list would kind of go away. And then I would kind of begin to just know, oh, I need to reach out to that one person, that 10 times relationship, stuff like that. So yeah,
it's true. So what's the best or the greatest spiritual practice you know?
Oh, meditation for sure.
Without question.
But actually, you know, I don't have time to like sit there literally, like people say. I can take 3 breaths, deep breaths, and get into a state that it would usually have taken me hours, like an hour to get into before.
And then you try to take that state with you throughout your day.
Yeah,
right?
and I'll do it multiple times throughout the day. At the beginning of every meeting, everything, like get just completely tapped in, and then it's like, okay, it's on, let's do this.
Yeah, that's why I think, when people talk about like, unceasing prayer or unceasing meditation, I think it's really just about existing with that space. You already exist within that space, but being aware that you're within that space at all points in times. And I think that's also what people call practicing the presence of God. It's the same essential thing, practicing the presence of good, or practicing the presence of happiness or peace or love. It's essentially all the same thing, but I do think it's a moment-to-moment practice.
And we want to know, how does your daily spiritual practice affect your personal and professional life? So important for all of us to stay on track. It's very overwhelming. We have a lot of energy, a lot of loneliness, a lot of whatever, and we have to do this. That's why we come together every morning here. That's why we have the guests that we have. And each one of our guests today has an amazing story around how they're tapping into bringing their full life here for us today. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Thank you for tuning in to the Model Mama Show. I'm your host, Tara Tenner, and Shelton, we are signing off. Thanks, bye.
Beautiful.
I'm so glad to have you.
Thank you. I feel so lucky. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me. Cheers. Here's to a good Friday night. Thanks, Michelle, and I will see you again next time.
And thank you, everyone, for joining in. This has been another episode of Mind, Body, Spirit, and I'm Dr. Kate.
Thank you so much. I hope you guys live your best life. Peace out. Peace out.
And thank you for watching the LA Home Show, where we discuss all things real estate, interior design, and much, much more.
We'll see you next time. You're watching Passion to Paycheck on the Focus TV network.
Thanks for watching. Tune in next time.
So I'm your host, Serena Poon, and thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
And if you want to binge watch these videos, they will be on Focus TV network. Check that out. We will see you soon. Thank you so much for being here. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
I greatly appreciate your service.
It was an honor to serve. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much for tuning in for this episode of Purpose. I am your host, Brittany Zonker, and I will see you next time.
It's been such a treat to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I love you.
Erin Ziering, Millennial Moms, the best blogger parent out there.
Thank you.
Aww. Thanks, guys, for watching.
All right, thanks, guys, for watching. You're watching The Ren Wood Show on Focus TV Network. We'll see you next time. Until next time, guys, on Focus TV Network, sipping that tea where we sip
Yes,
that tea,
and our guest spiller. Thank you, guys.
Bye. Well, thanks again, and we'll see you guys next time on Moms Matter.
Thank you for listening, and DM us, follow us on social media.
Charo, baby!
I appreciate your time today. Casey Montoya, you are a woman warrior.
Thank you, Courtney. Thank you for letting me talk about this.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's so sweet.
Thank you to the Focus TV studios for another great episode, and I'll see you guys next time.
We are Good Morning LALALAND, America's first live streaming daily talk show, coming to you live Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. And you can listen to all your favorite interviews available as a podcast on iTunes.
That's right, we're waking up the world together. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and check out these amazing, amazing people.
It's going to be a Good Morning LALALAND.
Well, thank you so much for watching and for listening to Celeb CEOs with Rachel McCord. This is Erin Kerman, and we've got Jax, and tell me her name one more
Lucy.
time. Lucy in the studio making lots of fun noises. Mwah, we love you. Tune in next time. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, sir.
Welcome back to Good Morning La La Land on Motivation Monday. There's no greater motivation than love, and who better to talk about this than Mandy Morris, because she's an author, philanthropist, and she's a book called Love, It's How I Manifest.
Oh,
it's
I
how
love
we all
that
manifest,
title.
right?
I love that
Amazing.
title.
Thank you both.
So tell us about your journey into becoming somebody that felt so compelled to write a book about it.
Absolutely. There's been many different experiences in my life, of course, and the one that I wanted to talk about was when I was 13. I got a phone call. One of my best friends had just died, and I'd went to his wake. So you can imagine, all of that.
Yeah.
And then I got a phone call, and it was my father, and he was killing himself. And he had called to say goodbye, and tell your sister I love her, and he'd taken the bottle of Percocets, and he was states away, and I was just sitting there like, how does someone get to this place where they can't start over, where they don't believe that something can change in their lives? And I just remember thinking, I'm going to pour love, I'm going to pour love, I'm going to pour love until love is all he knows. And he ended up telling us where he was, and he's still alive today. It was an amazing turnaround story.
Wow.
But it really set me on this journey of why do people believe they can't start over? And there's many, many reasons to that. But love is one of the components to really healing that and bringing forth true change.
So do you truly feel like in that moment you're on the phone? What, did he hang up, or was it on the phone? Did you just sit there like going almost like into a deep prayer around love, or how did that look like for you?
It was much crazier than that, unfortunately. But I remember going to my mom, of course, and being like, he's not okay. And so she locked herself in the washing room, and thank God for her. She was really probably one. But she was like, tell me where you are, what is going on? You can't do this. Like, this is not gonna happen this way. And I remember just dropping to my knees the whole time. And I was such a journaler. I was like this weird nut. I would journal to God all the time. And I'm writing to God, and I'm like, it's not today, it's not gonna happen. Please be with him. Like, what needs to happen here? And by the grace of the universe kind of coming together in that, and him choosing to stay also out of love, I'm sure, love of his children.
Yeah.
He stuck around.
That is incredible to me. I personally have been in a very suicidal place in my life, and I was there for a long time. And I have to say that digging yourself out of that hole is really, really tough.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of love, of course. And so what have you learned in the process, both sort of in writing the book, but of course in living your life, about love?
It's been kind of this ever-evolving process, and I love, when I look at Oprah, she's got many platforms. She's here to raise the consciousness, but she has many different ways that she does it. So I kind of embody that, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to always just be working with suicide, because that's pretty heavy energy all the time. But what about people who are ready to change, who are ready to work on themselves and want to create something different? And so then I put my ego aside, and I've got all this background in science and physics and psychology, and I'm like, I'm just going to be a coach. And I'm gonna, teach people about love, and I'm gonna be that, meditating girl or whatever. But it was in really studying how and why does someone's brain and life and thoughts and beliefs not change.
So
why are they always stuck?
So as a doctor of divinity and teaching universal law, we teach that love guides the way, but the law makes it happen, because it's like how we manifest. And I'll never forget that, I think it was, I forgot the gal's name, very famous spiritual teacher, but someone was talking about love, and she said, it's ethereal and we can't really touch it, but if you say, the love between you and your kids, or your love between, it's so tangible, it may be more real than anything else here, because it's what we care about.
Yes.
So how do you help people find and discern what is love for somebody, and it's each different.
Oh, I love that you say this. So quick background, if I can say this. So I used to work in Scandinavia, and I would work with trauma victims, and we had this incredible technology that would help rewire the brain. And then also, me there in the communicative therapy component.
Wait, so what is this exactly? It's just a technology.
Where is it? Where do we get it? I have one at home. I totally geeked out and bought one.
Is it like a biofeedback thing?
Yes, but so much more.
We gotta talk, girl.
If you tell the scientists who made it it's biofeedback, they will punch you because of it. It's so much more.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's incredible, but it can rewire neurological pathways. So we were doing that, but what we found is it would take a month, sometimes 3 months, in these sessions to get someone's brain just with technology alone. So I pop in there, because all of my friends are really cool scientists and stuff, and they're like, let's just play around and see. So then I'm communicating with them as we're rewiring the brain. 4 hours. 4 hours we're able to completely change the trauma and the way that it interacts with the brain and the behaviors and so forth. We're like, what is this? And I'm like, It's because I love them. It's because I genuinely care about this person. And I'm literally, before I go in, I'm filling the room with love. And it sounds so silly and so woo-woo to some people, and some neuroscientists are like, well, it makes sense, kind of, you know.
No, it makes sense.
Right.
We have the observer effect. We are proving this in quantum physics, and how we perceive things is how it comes about. So of course,
that's right. We also have
right?
experimenter bias, right? We
Absolutely.
know of that we can get different effects even within the same experiment, just based on different experimenters.
Exactly.
And their and their approach.
Yeah, I'm just living on my vibration. I'm like, this person will shift. That's the only reality I'm on, so that I don't know any different, right?
That's incredible. So how would you define love?
Love it's a human capacity. Love is like literally where human consciousness is moving towards. It's not the end all be all, but it's where we need to go next, because it's this binding factor of oneness is really what I see it as. So love can be tough love. It could be nothing. It can be all things. It's very malleable. And I do think that there's literally like corners of the universe where love isn't even existing in human capacities, at least for sure. But it's really creating a unification of the fact that we are all energy.
You mean it's not a ring on the finger and it's not whatever, right?
I know.
Yeah, right.
Sure of that.
Tell death do us part.
Right. There is a freeing thing. I think I remember someone saying love just is, and I was like, that's interesting. That changes the whole game, because it really is. Whether you break up with somebody or whether it's this form or that form, love is eternal, and it's such a beautiful place. I'm so happy for you that you've come to that. How's your father doing? We want to know.
He's doing really good. He's doing really, really good. Still kicking. He's a stubborn old man. He used to ride bulls and everything, so you can imagine he comes from that. He's a cowboy, but he's doing amazing. He was just at my wedding earlier this year, and we got to dance and everything.
That's incredible. Yeah. Have you seen him change and evolve over the years?
Yes and no. And this is the hard part with family, is that when you're so close to them, you drop back into your human self instead of your soul self. And so when you're wanting to, shift people that you love in that way, right? You have to maintain that high vibration, which means that the love shows up many different ways, which is sometimes I'm going to remove myself, from this to serve you in the highest good, or, whatever.
So speaking of, you do some philanthropy.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Oh my gosh. So we have this, my husband and I founded it together. It's called Hustle and Heart. My husband's Filipino, and so we started in the Philippines, and we have a whole team out there now, and almost every month we're doing huge events, bringing farming, sustainable farming to tribes, food, medical supplies, you name it, we're doing it. But I think the coolest thing is that we're bringing love. That there is someone, across the world that loves them so much that will...
Hustle and Heart?
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Hustle and Heart.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So if there's one thing that a person could do in order to manifest more deeply and fully through love, what would you recommend? Where would they start?
This is what I hear a lot, is everyone wants to know how to manifest, right? How do I manifest? How do I manifest? And we don't realize that we're manifesting all the time, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
And so the answer is actually in how are we counter-manifesting? What am I doing that is in opposition to it? So if all things are energy, if we want to entertain that idea, right now, if I'm sending out conscious thought, like mantras, meditations, we're consciously there saying, I want love, or I want a beautiful life, or I want money, or whatever. And they're like, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do, right? Well, the whole other component, which is like 80% of the gig, is what's going on in our subconscious, which is saying we're not worthy of love. Yeah. We can't have it. It's not safe. So the answer of whatever we want to manifest, love or more human riches, is what are we doing and what are we telling ourselves underneath the surface that's counter-manifesting and sending literally oppositional energy out to the universe.
You sure your maiden name isn't Haskell? Could be. I'm going to give you Haskell.
We are sisters. We're definitely sisters.
I know she's talking. I'm like,
I know. Wow. Okay. We gotta hang a little here. I want to check out these machines you got going on.
I know.
Because I keep thinking about we're doing group processing more stuff. Because doing one-on-one's great, but it's just. Can't do that all, right? So I think technology's got to come into it, group stuff, whatever, so we'll have to talk for sure.
Absolutely.
Right? So tell people where they can find you and work with you.
Yes, so Facebook, Mandy Morris, that's very easy. My website, mandymorris.love. We do have events. We have lots of digital programs. I don't do any one-on-one work, unfortunately, but there's tons of people who have this technology. If someone's like, I just want the technology part, just rewire my brain without any conscious intention in it. There's lots of folks that work for me. I've got psychiatrists and therapists and coaches and counselors that work underneath me for that one-on-one work too.
Amazing.
Love it. Mandy Morris, what a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you both. Appreciate it.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Another turning point, a fork stuck in the road. Time grabs you by the wrist, directs you where to go. So make the best of this test and don't ask why. It's not a question but a lesson learned in time. It's something unpredictable, but in the end is right. I hope you had the time of your life. So take the photographs and still frames in your mind, hanging on a shelf in good health and good time. Tattoos of memories and dead skin on trial. For what it's worth, it was worth all the while. It's something unpredictable, but in the end is right. I hope you had the time of your life. I hope you have
4, 3. Welcome back to Good Morning La La Land. On Motivation Monday, there's something so special with the men and women that have served our country that give us motivation, knowing that we are one love right here. So Don Brown is in the house, best-selling author of many, many books, but this one in particular, The Last Fighter Pilot. You're going to have to tell us all about this.
We will. Thank you so much.
All right.
Yeah, thanks.
Welcome to the show.
Good to be here.
So where did the story start here?
This is a story. It's my 13th book. I've written 13 military books so far, a combination of fiction and nonfiction. This is written about Captain Jerry Yellen, who flew the very final combat mission of World War II. The mission was flown actually 5 days after the last atomic bomb was dropped. Most people think that the war ended when the bomb was dropped. That did not happen. And so Jerry was in Iwo Jima. We've seen that picture, the iconic photograph by Joe Rosenthal, Marines pushing the flag up. And one Navy guy's a Navy guy. I've got to plug the Navy a little bit. But that was, we took Iwo Jima to put a fighter base there so we could put P-51 Mustangs. And so we dropped both of the bombs. The Japanese did not initially surrender. 5 days passed, and we were hoping they would surrender. And then President Truman at the time ordered the air campaign against Japan to start, again, on the 14th. This was the day that the Emperor wound up surrendering or announcing the surrender. Captain Jerry Yellen and his young wingman, Jerry was 21 years old at the time, his wingman, 19-year-old Phil Schlomberg, who, by the way, happens to be the great uncle of the great actress Scarlett Johansson. They take off on this mission at 8 o'clock in the morning from Iwo Jima, and they fly basically 4 hours out to Tokyo. They start to execute a strafing mission against the Japanese airfield, and they pull up from the attack, and as they pull up, Jerry comes out of the clouds, and Phil Schlomberg disappears, and is the last known combat death of the war. 19 years old, grew up one of 10 kids, both of them were Jewish fighter pilots, finishing the war off, which is an interesting twist considering what happened in Germany. He was the last known combat death, and Scarlett's mom, Melanie Sloan, has written a beautiful foreword in the book, and so it's quite a story. So I'm just honored to bring Jerry's story here today. He passed away a year ago, and we're going to put him to rest in Arlington, at Arlington National Cemetery just next week. You know, there's so many.
So what do you think? What do you think he would say if he was standing up at his own eulogy? What do you think he would say?
He would say, "Everybody love everybody and try to get along." You know, his story is a powerful twist, because a lot of those guys, just like in today's modern military, so many young men and women enter because of 9/11. Back in those days, it was Pearl Harbor, and so these guys entered, and young men and women entered the military hating the Japanese at the time, and so Jerry suffered from PTSD. The World War II guys don't really talk about it so much. But Jerry suffered. He lost 17 of his friends. Wow. And a few years later, he had one of his sons, now going to get this, he wanted to go to Japan on one of these exchange educational programs. So Jerry's son goes to Japan, meets a Japanese girl, and you can see where this is going. So he falls in love with a Japanese girl, comes home and said, "Dad, I want to marry this girl." And so Captain Yellen says, "Well, what's her father do?" Well, he was a kamikaze pilot. So you have an American fighter pilot whose future in-law is a kamikaze pilot, and they had to learn to reconcile.
The universe is like, you got to figure this out.
It's a powerful story, and Jerry spent so much of his life after that working with young men and women with PTSD. He was working with an organization called Heaven and Earth Oasis. They do a lot of non-traditional therapy.
Let's talk about it, because we know that we lose a lot of vets to suicide, and we talk a lot on here about how we can really live the best life. And whether you've been a war vet or not, a lot of people do have PTSD regardless. And so we know there's so many different programs and different modalities, and people are trying to do it, but there's just not enough people to even serve people with PTSD. So how's that working with this?
Well, the first thing we've got to do, we have to recognize that PTSD is not only real, but it's deadly and debilitating. And so personal human touch, I think, is where it starts. You know, that's where it starts. Personal human touch. Personal human touch. Anyway, I'm working actually with a couple of guys out at Leavenworth. You know, we have a U.S. disciplinary barracks out there now, and you wouldn't believe what these paratroopers and soldiers have had to go through with in Afghanistan, because we lost more people in Afghanistan from bombs in the ground, or we call them IEDs, than from getting shot. And everywhere these guys are stepping, they have to actually move across the country in single file, setting forth their pathway with baby powder, and then out to the front of these columns, there's a guy called a mine hound, and that person has a metal detector sweeping for mines. And if you step to the left or step to the right, boom. And so they're living with this. They're living with all this. Jerry was living with a lot of that. So I really appreciate the work you guys are doing to bring attention to it.
I had a dear friend that I used to dance with, because I used to dance salsa, and he was actually a war vet, and he was one of those people that went out and would test the bombs. And I thought, wow, like, can you imagine going to test to see if a bomb is active or not active, and just the willingness. And I know that there's different mixed feelings for people out there about, should we be at war, should we not? And I don't have those answers, and I know that we have to put rules and regulations and boundaries in this universe. But I just want to really acknowledge all the men and women that have served, and I know that I can't imagine what people have been through, and we just want to send love and deep gratitude for everyone, knowing that everyone does things because they generally feel like they're doing the best.
Absolutely.
Right?
Exactly.
And we have to highlight and appreciate you, Dawn, for highlighting these folks' stories as well. Where did your story begin?
My story began in a little town called Plymouth, North Carolina, 3,000 miles from here, and somehow I wound up here on the set of Good Morning La La Land. I don't know how, but a lot of times, you know, I was with Jerry Yellen when this book was released, and it was released. We kicked off at the Reagan Library up in Simi Valley. So I'm standing there speaking. I'm here at the Reagan Library. All these people are out here, and I can understand why they would want Jerry there. But I say, what am I doing here? You know, it's just, what am I doing here at the Reagan Library? But it's been a journey of service, and but I just love people, and I have compassion, especially for fellow vets, I think, who probably are suffering more than any particular demographic group from PTSD at this point. But like you said, Dr. Erin, it's not just war. Any sort of trauma can cause it. I've been a divorce lawyer, and so you know, it can
be worse.
Right.
So tell people where they can find your book, how they can get involved with the organization.
All right. Okay, the book you can find on Amazon. The book is Last Fighter Pilot: The Final Story of the Final Combat Mission of World War II, published by Regnery. I'd encourage you to check out also Heaven and Earth Oasis.org. They're the organization that's working so well with PTSD, and if you need some information, you can contact their publicist, Tracy at lightfinderpr.com. And if I didn't get that right, I'll hear about it. But I do.
Tracy.
Yes, she's wonderful. But thank you so much for taking the part in the battle. We appreciate it.
What a pleasure.
God bless you both.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Bless you both.
TV here in West Hollywood.
All right.
He hates it. Check it out on Focus TV.
Like it?
Woo! Can you cut it and make it better?
Oh.
You got this, girl. Here we go.
Oh my God, you're gonna make me laugh.
Hi, my name is Jessie Golden, and I am the creator of The Golden Secrets. Hang on a second, sorry. Can we start over?
I'm Wendy Brokaw. I'm Paula Marshall. By the way, this is politics, okay? This is not ticks. I hated it. Let's do it one more time.
Well, that's why I created Just a Thought meditation recordings, so that you can meditate in your sleep. Pause it there. Can you edit it in?
Being new in town, it gives me a perspective on, oh shit, no, that was wrong.
No, can we start all over? That's too much talking.
No, I'm an actress. I mean, you've seen me. Hopefully.
Yeah, it's like so hard. It's so hard. That was so hard.
Once you go chocolate, you don't want to stop it.
I'll stop.
Let's do it one more time.
Bitching,
Didn't work.
complaining.
Let me do it one more time.
We're gonna
Didn't
do
work.
it one more time.
Ready? And action.
Do I just talk again? If you are vegan, you get a vegan broth. You get, Jesus, guys, fuck. I'm blah, blah.
Single issue.
Single issue.
Single issue.
Andy, did I make it fun yet?
Thank you.
It's no longer a golden secret.
We're done!
Welcome back to Good Morning La La Land. Sloane Siegel, who is Dwight in shining armor. How the hell are you? Amazing.
I thought I'd actually try and have some style.
Okay, honestly, you are amazing. You've been in like 50 films, like so many commercials.
Yeah, reading your
like,
bio was incredible.
What?
Thanks. No, it's just.
And you look like you're
parts here, parts there.
16.
Just trying to do my best. Oh, thank you. Hey, I'm close to that. I was 16 a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Once. Yeah. But yeah, no, I'm just love what I do. So yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your journey into La La Land, into Hollywood. I mean, this is something that is so many people's dream, and we've talked to so many great actors, and we believe that acting is one of the greatest spiritual practices because you get to try on all these different characters, and we're really just living a character
It's a great way to
right?
express yourself as well. I mean, you're living through another person's eyes, and you're living through their experiences and their feelings and emotions. And it's definitely a challenging job, but for somebody that feels everything in the world like I do, it's pretty fun. It gives me a chance to channel that, you know. Whereas if I wasn't an actor, I don't know what I'd be doing.
Right.
Oh, you're an empath? You're an empath.
Oh, I'm totally.
Yeah.
I'm 100%.
So tell us about the actual journey into.
Oh yeah. So I was born in D.C. I grew up in West Virginia. In the middle of nowhere. I was raised on a rescue farm. We rescued over 200 animals, you know, a bull, 16 horses, a bunch of dogs, bunch of cats, even a fish named Jesus. So
really?
Yeah, there's a story about that actually. We got him, he died for 3 days. We were like, oh no, we must, you know, flush him down the toilet. He woke up in the toilet. He's like, whoa man, wait a minute.
What?
So,
what?
Yes, his name is Jesus. So
Fair enough. Yeah. Fair enough.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so I tried theater in West Virginia, and that didn't go too well. I was Boris the Russian Reindeer in Charlie Brown Christmas. I'll just let that set in. West Virginia doesn't have the best theater program in the world.
Yeah.
But then, out of nowhere, shockingly enough, my mom heard this thing on the radio that was like, you know, if you want your kid to be an actor, bring them down to wherever. So I was given a literal left or right decision. I was told either go left to soccer practice or go right to something 3 hours away that could totally be a scam.
Wow.
It turned out to be an acting school. I got a scholarship. 3 out of 300 kids got in. They sent me to this big showcase thing, you know how those work. And I did pretty well. Got it, you know, came out to California, gave it a shot. You know, thought we'd only be here for pilot season. Turns out we were here for, I don't know, going on 8 years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
It's like by the book, though. I mean, kind of like, it doesn't usually happen like that,
No,
right?
no, it doesn't. I mean, it's still been a very long journey, and they say, you know, you get 88 auditions before you get a call back and 100 more before you get a booking.
Yeah.
But I was actually very fortunate to get my first role and become SAG eligible the night or not the night of, but I booked my first role the night of.
Yeah.
I flew in at about 7 p.m. January 2nd. To LAX, which was surreal in itself because, you know, I hadn't been to any big airports or anything. I'm from middle of nowhere again. I grew up across the street from 100 acres of cornfield.
Yeah.
But
and like 3 miles down the road from me in Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
Well, not that far, yeah. Totally.
Which is a great place.
Yeah.
So you seem like you're extremely positive. Are you always
Absolutely.
like this? Is it?
Oh yeah. No, I'm super positive. They hate me in the makeup trailer every morning when I walk in to set because they're like, Sloane, it's 6 a.m. Stop being so energetic and happy. But like, I love being happy because there's no,
Oh my goodness.
you can't give yourself a reason to be sad.
It's so true. What do you attribute your success to?
My success?
Yeah.
To a lot of things.
Yeah.
A lot to my parents, of course, because without supportive parents, I wouldn't be here or anywhere, you know, because they dropped their entire lives for me to chase a dream that could have ended up just being a dream, and it ended up being a reality. And you know, yeah, here we are.
There you go.
But I owe it a lot to them. I owe it to the people I've met along the way. You know, the people that have helped me learn. You know, the people that have been a positive and a negative influence in my life. Because if you don't learn from those negative experiences, how can you ever achieve the positive?
Amen. Preaching right here. Right. So tell us a little bit about the show.
Dwayne Training? Yeah. All right. Well, it is about a modern-day kid who accidentally falls into a buried castle from 1,000 years ago, lands lip to lip with a Gothic princess, and wakes her up along with her court magician, her allies, and hordes of enemies.
Wow.
Wow. And it's a half-hour medieval adventure comedy.
I love it.
That is so cool. So what do you love most about your character in the role?
Oh my gosh. I love that he has. He still maintains a sense of humility even in the most drastic of situations. Like, say we're being held up by 8 bandits and there's only 2 of us, I'd still crack a joke every now and then. I get to be the guy that makes a quick quip or something, and it's that's really fun to be the outside perspective as well. To where, you know, all the characters in the world are from that time, and they're familiar with, you know, terms such as a wyvern or a vargur. But Dwight, he doesn't know anything. So I get to go in not knowing anything and experience everything for the first time. But I'm a nerd, so I play D&D, and I watch Star Trek and Star Wars, and anything that you would see at Comic-Con, I'm so into it. So being on a show that's involved in all these different mythologies and folklores. I mean, I used to go to the Renaissance Fair.
So how do you think that mythology plays into somebody who's you know, a young man in today's world with just the way technology and the whole world is? What would you say? How would you relate the story and what he's going through and what someone would be going through in today's world?
Yeah, as far as his story.
And like the mythology around it, his story. You know, like what is that?
Oh yeah. It's it definitely gives you a new perspective on going outside and finding adventure wherever it might lie. Because, you know, kids don't get out enough. You know, they need to get out there and enjoy nature and explore. Yeah, go outside, enjoy a nice hike in the woods or up a mountain. Or I mean, I just went to Hawaii. And I went ocean rafting, and I went zip lining and all that jazz. But
it's so interesting. I love that you point out the importance of adventure and also taking risks. Like, you know, you took a very important and significant and pivotal risk very early in your life that's made all the difference for you in your career in your life.
You made the right turn.
Right?
Just saying.
Yeah.
Right?
No, it was definitely a risk. I mean, it's a job that not a whole lot of people succeed at. And the fact that I have succeeded, I'm very thankful. And I'm very thankful to, especially the people that watch the things that I'm in, and the people that I've met along the way and everything. Because without them, I mean, you know, there's a man named Daniel Henning who does the thing called the Young Playwrights Festival, which they. Are you familiar with that?
Of course.
Oh yeah, it's a great program.
And I'm not an actor. I just know him.
He's a great guy. But he says something every night at the Playwrights Festival. He said, no, the audience, this would just be rehearsal.
Touche. Yeah. Touche. Right.
So we'd just be sitting here talking ourselves, but you know, we're thankful for everybody that's watching right now and everybody that watches in the future.
No one watches, so
looking back now, what would you say? I mean, you have so many credits to your name. What would you say have been some of the most memorable highlights to your career at this point?
Oh wow.
Role.
Definitely the big ones, the ones that lasted the longest, and the ones where I got to work with people that I grew up watching. Like I just got to do a guest spot on the Goldbergs, and I worked with Clancy Brown, who, if you don't know Clancy Brown, he's the voice of Mr. Krabs in SpongeBob. And of course, I watched SpongeBob growing up. I mean, a lot of kids did.
Totally.
So that was really fun. Every time he laughed in a scene, I was like, oh yeah. But and Gordimer as well. I mean, that was the turning point in my career. That show lasted. We filmed that for about 3 years. I made lifelong friends on that show. My best friend was on that show. He played Bad Luck Stanley. But yeah.
What's the most challenging part of your life and your career right now? What would you say?
Challenging part of my life and my career. Getting myself to understand that everything's okay. You know, because I have the worst job security ever. I could be told tomorrow, hey, you know, we don't want you anymore.
Totally.
And that's happened to everybody. But yeah, so letting myself know, hey, you know, you're okay. You can be comfortable in the fact that you're on a show and you've put in endless hours and worked very hard and enjoyed every minute of it, but you can enjoy that, you know.
So I love you saying that, and I'm a firm believer that when you embrace insecurity, it becomes security, right? It's a recognition of a deeper kind of security. And I watched an interview this weekend, an old one with Oprah. It was like one of her first interviews before she had the Oprah Winfrey Show, and somebody said, you know, what happens if the show doesn't work out? She's like, well, it's going to work out. And then they're like, what happens if it really doesn't work out? And she's like, well, if it doesn't work out, I'll still do well. I'm still going to do well my entire life. There are so many other things in my life that are important, and I'm not going to be known just for being a TV host, although I'd love that, but I'm going to do well no matter what. And I love you saying that, because I think there's great truth in that.
Yeah, my mom, I'll give you the wisdom from my mom.
Moms have the best wisdom, by the way.
Moms do have the best.
Brownie points right now.
But she always says, you know, no matter who you are or what the odds are against you, you have to overcome. Because my parents are amazing people that have overcome tremendous, you know, things in their lives, and I respect them, and I try and honor them by saying, you know, no matter what gets thrown at me, I can overcome it. Because, you know, if it's something tragic or something small, you know, just make sure you find one good thing in every day.
Right. But that's like a practice. You have to like build that muscle around, like, you know, because we can easily focus on what's wrong or what's right.
Oh yeah, you can give in to pain any second of the day, but it's up to you to, you know, bring joy to your life.
Is there anything specific you do in order to maintain both that positive attitude, but also the confidence? Do you read? Do you listen to things? Is it friends? Is
Actually,
it just?
it's friends. It's an exercise I kind of made up where whenever I deal with a lot of anxiety and everything, you know.
Being an empath.
Yeah, being an empath. You feel everything in the room. And when you're feeling everything in the room and when doing too well, of course, reach out to them and make sure they're all right. But for me personally, I think of every time I've made someone smile. I think of every time a friend of mine has smiled. I think of any time someone has, you know, been thankful to me or I've been thankful to them. And I just have that split second of an image in my mind and I hold on to it, you know. All my closest friends, even people that have just passed by on the street, you know.
Well, you're just so lovely, and you take us to a place in mythology and a time where we get in that fantasy, but also knowing that relates to here right now, saying yes to adventure. So thank you so much for saying yes, making the right turn, and shining your light so bright for all of us.
Where can people find and follow you?
Find and follow me. They can find and follow me on all forms of social media at Sloane Siegel, SLOANESIEGEL. Yeah, there's an E on there. I forget it all the time. That's fine.
Awesome. So appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
We are the Mouseketeers, and we proudly wear our ears. We mousin', we mousin', MICKEY, Club Mickey Mouse. Good morning, LALALAND.
Live from Los Angeles, welcome back to Motivation Monday here on Good Morning LaLaLand. We have had an extraordinary show with these phenomenal guests. I feel like I've learned so much. Talking lots about spiritual practice or even psychological or emotional practices, maybe physical practices that you have that really improve your life. And so I'm wondering from each of our guests, what's the one practice, daily practice, that you would recommend to other people or to our viewers, maybe to begin or to continue doing to improve their personal or professional life? We'll start with you first.
Yeah, sure. Just take a moment every day to, you know, recount the good deeds you've done. And yet again, anytime you've made someone smile, anytime you've affected someone's life in a positive way. And hold on to that. Hold on to the idea that you exert positive energy into the world, and keep doing that.
I love that. In positive psychology, we talk a lot about savoring, you know, and we often talk about savoring the good experience in your life, but we don't always attach it to the things that we've done to create those positive experiences. So I love that you highlight the role that we've each played in creating positive experiences for ourselves and others. It's awesome. Thanks.
So awesome.
Thank you.
Is it my turn?
Yes, it's your turn.
I'm going to keep it really simplistic because it's so universal, and it is love versus fear or light versus heavy. And what that means is in every moment where you're having thoughts that are making you anxious, or you're just not feeling right, or you don't know, fork in the road, I should do this because, my mom would be proud, or because it's the, the thing that society would tell me to do, but for some reason you have that pull, choose the one that truly feels light, or truly feels, like it's coming from, I call it love, because that's your intuition speaking, and you can do that literally from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep.
Right. And a lot of people, we're talking about, choosing good thoughts, whatever, and they go, well, how can I love a moment like when somebody gets cancer or something like that? What do you say to that?
Everything is perspective. And so by all means, there's certain traumas that are so hard to process that it's not going to be a 15-minute flip of the perspective. But everything, there is multiple ways to look at something. And the main thing is that the brain won't perceive it as a lie. So once we realize there are multiple ways to look at this, and I can see this from different angles, there's always something beautiful. There's always some form of love in it.
One of my favorite quotes you just remind me of is Dr. Seuss. It's a lot easier to remember and to spit back out than it is often to practice, which is don't be sad it's over, be glad it happened.
Yes.
And that's an important one I try to remember over and over again, but it's easier to remember it when you're not going through something.
Rob's our walking quote. He's like,
I'm obsessed with quotes. I
dig it.
So many phenomenal writers in the world. So,
true.
Yeah.
How about you, John?
Well, first of all, I would start the day by watching this show.
There you go. Oh my gosh.
But then after this show's over, cut the television, get quiet. Rob, I agree with you. I like to read inspirational quotes. Joyce Meyer once wrote a book called The Battlefield of the Mind. It starts in the mind.
Love that book.
It starts with positive thinking, looking at the sublime, looking at things that are greater than us to get rid of the negative. And maybe an hour a day doing that. I don't always practice what I preach, but that's what it is. Yeah.
Join the club.
Yeah.
We're in the school called Life.
That's one of my favorite books by Joyce Meyer.
It's powerful.
And, it's interesting. You can have an idea in your head about what a person, is really about, and then until you sort of get to know them very well or read their books, you don't really know. And that's a perfect illustration of that. I didn't know a whole lot about Joyce Meyer, but I picked up that book, and it was just
I'm gonna have to read it. I haven't read that.
Very good. Yeah.
Very good.
It's amazing.
Can't judge the book by its cover.
That's exactly right. That's
I think that's
right.
one of our things that we found, for me for sure, being from the spiritual genre as a Doctor of Divinity, I was like, oh, we had reality people on the show, and I was like, how are these people, whatever? And the point is that we all have to open our mind and see that we all want good things. I mean, maybe there's a few, bad seeds on this planet, but in general, everyone has a spiritual practice. They may not call it that, whatever, but they have their way of getting into right mind. They have their way of whatever, and we just have found that everybody on the show is up to amazing things. They're all just trying to be the most expressed, make the difference in the world, right?
It's such a good point, Erin. Like I remember growing up, and I'm not sure, I know a little bit about each of your childhoods, but like me growing up, basketball for me, I now realize was a spiritual practice. Every single day it was this ritualistic thing that I did, and I would go to this special place sort of inside where I was just kind of practicing the presence of God. I didn't realize it at that point. I wouldn't have called it meditation, I wouldn't have called it prayer, but in a weird sort of strange way, it was, the intention was the same. As I've grown up, I've come to realize there are other, probably better ways for me to access that. But yeah, I think we all have practices, and we may not just be aware of them, right?
For sure, right?
Yeah. For sure.
So what is your, do you guys call it spiritual practice? I know you probably do, Mandy, I would imagine, but do you guys call it, what do you call it, your practice? Do you just have any language around it?
Quiet time.
Okay.
Yeah. Quiet time.
There you go. Okay.
I think that spells it out better than about anything I can think of.
I like it. Yeah.
Got to get quiet. So many voices competing, just like you mentioned with everything that's emails, Instagram. I tell my staff, get into my ear. Don't send me 100,000 different electronic messages because I'll miss them. So just quiet time.
So I'm the worst. Are you kidding? People
right.
I emailed your guy. I don't know.
you're a victim of your own popularity, Doctor. These popular people are lucky to be here.
How about you, Sloan?
Me? No, I guess it doesn't. I don't have a name for any of my, I guess I would call them spiritual practices, but I don't have a particular name for them. I guess the best things can't always be described with words. So.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so true. And I think at least I've discovered that more and more as I spent more time in quiet time. I think that's one of the most difficult things to actually truly deeply embrace. But then once you just get even a glimpse of the joy and the peace that you can experience in that quiet time, you want to go back over and over and over again.
Right.
Erin and I have that conversation all the time. She's like, I just want to spend all my time in meditation with God.
Well, and I turned off the TV, like you said, in 2008, after it was just kind of an insane, just so overwhelmed by everything going on in the world. And I literally just, I turned off the TV and I did a lot of meditation, and now I just love the quiet. Like the TV's on the background or something, I'm like, it just is distracting. It's just so beautiful to just sit in silence.
Yeah.
Not only that, but it's amazing how much work, how much you can accomplish by getting these outer influences out of the way, all the clutter. You know, I mean, you know, I've written 13 books and it wasn't from watching TV all day. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it.
That brings me to another question, because I completely agree with you that, like, my most creative and brilliant ideas always are downloaded to me when I'm quiet, right? And you've, of course, had lots of brilliant ideas, 13 books. So what would you say if there was somebody who wanted to write a book? Any tips or
tricks? It's a big thing. Like, I think it's like 80-something% of the population wants to write a book.
Right. Well, it's easier said than done, but if you want to do it, you can do it. Write like you talk. Be natural. My grandmother said the greatest note in the chromatic scale was be natural. We have any musicians in here? No, maybe not, the chromatic scale. But be natural is the greatest note in the chromatic scale. You write what you know, write your experiences, don't try to be fluffy or impress anyone, and find a good writers conference. You know, I got started at a writers conference, and you'll meet agents, literary agents and acquisitions editors, and then other authors you can talk about the craft. There's also a little book by Stephen King. I don't read all, called On Writing. I don't really read Stephen King's horror books, but he wrote a little book called On Writing. It's a primer on the topic. And it's about 50 or 60 pages. It's worth every dime.
Wow.
Yeah, On Writing by Stephen King.
I've heard of that book.
Yeah, it's very, very good. So I'd recommend that.
I'm definitely getting that.
Yeah, right. That's incredible.
Rob's written a great book, and he's writing 3 right now, right?
Yeah, I'm like, I'm 95% done with the other 4, so I'm just kind of finishing them up. But I don't know about you, but I always want to edit and edit and edit.
How do you choose which one you work on?
Because they're sort of progressive. So I kind of think about it like a graduate class. So the first one was happiness from the inside out. The next one will be joy from the inside out, which goes a little deeper. And then bliss from the inside out, that goes even deeper than that, and maybe love from the inside out. So it's sort of, for me, it's a graduated kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it is a good point around sort of writing the way you speak. It's one of the toughest things, I think, because most of our academic institutions don't teach you to do that. You know, at least the ones I went to. No, I love them all, but
And in English,
Ivy League schools.
Ivy League, we're with Ivy League grad out here today. So, but in English class, they teach us how to splice. I couldn't splice a sentence. Somebody, draw me into the. I couldn't do it. But you write like you speak. You talk like you write, and it's. The other thing is that it's a matter of just doing a little bit every day. It's just like you eat the pie one bite at a time. A little bit every day, and if you write 500 words a day, sooner or later you've got a manuscript. And as far as editing goes, for me, I have sort of a 3-chop rule. People ask me all the time, they want to be a novelist. And I say, well, do you want to be a novelist or you want to be a perfectionist? You can't be both.
I love it.
It's frustrating because we'll go through edits after edits, and then on page 302 at the bottom, there's a comment that's out of place, and you always hear from it. But you have to let it go, just like you let the bird go and fly. You have to let your manuscript go at some point.
It is amazing. I had edits in my book, and I called up my girlfriend who's a Hay House, and I was like, what is the deal? Why is editing so hard? She goes, Erin, when my book came out, it went on the shelves of Barnes & Noble, and there was duplicated paragraphs in it. I mean, even from a great publisher, like things happen, and you just gotta okay, it's like it's part of the problem. Wow, that's crazy.
I love what Jeslyn says. We miss you, Jeslyn. She says it's better to be done than perfect.
Right, exactly.
Better to be done than perfect. Absolutely.
General Patton has some great quotes about that also, about the military history. Something about a plan perfectly. I forgot what it was, but a plan, not a perfect plan, executed perfectly. I don't remember, but anyway, at least execute the plan. When you start, we watched the Bears lose to the Eagles yesterday. Both teams had a plan. They got to the NFC wildcard game, so they made it all the way to the playoffs. Maybe they won't win the Super Bowl, but hey, you're an athlete, so you make the playoffs. That's an accomplishment. So
I know what you mean. An imperfect plan executed perfectly is better than a perfect plan executed imperfectly.
You got that.
Wow.
Write that down, everybody.
Totally right. Is he not the walking?
It's weird. I'm like a little savant. I only have this one thing I can do.
You are right. General Patton will be released.
So on that note, what is your quote of the day? We want to know, because we are Good Morning La La Land, America's first daily live streaming talk show. You can find us across social media, Roku, Apple TV, all the above. Have a wonderful day. We're waking up together, and may you love your life. Have a beautiful one, you guys.
All right, it's going to be a Good Morning La La Land.
Bye, guys.